Stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of Joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V.
It is NFL trade deadline day. I promise we'll get into what I did with my freaking head. There's so much to get into. Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper, obviously saying that news breaking yesterday, which was really exciting. But are the Denver Broncos done? That's the question we are going to answer today. It is just me. James Palmer is actually doing stuff with Bleacher Report, which is really exciting for him. So happy, and we will have him on tomorrow. So no 10 observations from the Ravens game, but Jim Palmer will be breaking down everything that's happening in the NFL. If you have not, go watch his Bleacher Report show. I'm sure it's going to be very exciting. I am sticking to Twitter in case anything breaks. You guys know it feels like every single time on this show we have breaking news that comes, which I love because we get to react to it together. Hanging out with you, Broncos country, is always my favorite thing. So we will be 100% stalking what is going online. But are the Broncos actually going to be making any moves? I put together my 3 names that I think if the Broncos do any more moves, which personally I think they are done. I do not think they will be adding anybody. I said it yesterday. Sean Payton coming out and saying Superman's not walking in that door tells me that they're not looking to really make any moves. They realize how far off they are from, possibly making a Super Bowl. And yes, we're sitting here talking about the playoffs and anything can happen. But realistically, to get to the playoffs would be a huge win for this team and Broncos country alone. But to make it to the Super Bowl is a whole other type of story. So I do not think that they will be buying into any sort of big trade. No blockbuster deal will be happening. But I do think that they could possibly... I actually don't think they're going to be sellers anymore. I sit here and I'm like, I just don't think so. There are 3 names that are really starting to swirl all over, the rumors that are happening on Twitter, on social media, everywhere. And I'll give you those. But I do personally think that they are done. So if we get more breaking news, you and I are both going to be in for an exciting afternoon for sure. All right, 3 names that I think that the Denver Broncos could possibly be saying goodbye to as they look to the trade deadline that ends at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, 4 p.m. Eastern are Greg Dulcich, I think, could be number 1 target. Zach Wilson, and then Javonte Williams is continuing to swirl as well. So those are my top 3 names that I think if the Broncos decide to let go of anybody, this is who it would be. Now, realistically, I do not think that Greg Dulcich gets really any looks at it. Zach Wilson, I could potentially see that. And actually, let me know in the comments, if you had to pick an NFL team that would come for Zach Wilson, who would you decide? And then Javonte Williams, I think, could be on the chopping block. But again, it's going to be a little more rare. So if there's anybody, I'm circling that number 2 guy on this graphic for possibly leaving. Now, you might be like, well, Rachel, you're bringing up all of these guys. So why are you saying Zach Wilson number 1? Zach Wilson right now, I feel like, has the highest probability of a success rate moving on from this Denver Broncos team. There are plenty of teams who need quarterbacks. We're seeing lots of different teams going through rotation before, like with guys dealing with injuries, all sorts of stuff. I mean, did anybody really expect Jameis Winston to be a starting NFL QB again? No. Joe Flacco. Also, the Anthony Richardson stuff, I think the Colts did a great thing by saying, yeah, no, we're not doing this anymore. So I personally think that Zach Wilson could find a home the easiest out of any of them. But the fact that Greg Dulcich has been a healthy scratch for a few weeks now, why would any team be like, that's the guy I really want to add? He's been dealing with injuries left and right. I just don't think any team's going to pick up the phone and say, hey, George Payton, what's that tight end of yours that you guys have decided doesn't really do anything because he can't really stay healthy? Is he worth the gamble? I just don't see it happening, right? We talk all the time about having this high level of ceiling and potential. But if you can never get to that point, then I think it's kind of pointless. I really like Lucas Kroll. I know a lot of people gave crap to Cecil Lammey this offseason and during training camp and mini camp because of his talk about Lucas Kroll. But I think he can be that dynamic guy if Sean Payton will allow him to branch out a little bit. I'm really impressed so far with him. I know that there's been a few blunders throughout the past couple of weeks, but I do like what Lucas Kroll is capable of, and I like his body type. He's one of those bigger guys. He can be a good tight end if they allow him to. But getting him more and more reps time and time again, I also think is very, very crucial. All right, let's get to some of your comments. If they don't add anything on offense, wide receiver, tight end, or running back, I will be extremely disappointed. I feel like they owe it to this year's team to go for the playoff push. I think that this team, no matter what, is probably going to make the playoffs. That sounds like a very bold statement coming from this Denver Broncos team, and I get that. But really, I think that they can. I mean, let's just pull up their schedule really quick. Let me make sure I still have that schedule graphic. Here we go. I think that they can. They have to play smart football. You have to win the games that are being handed to you in a sense. So obviously, you've got the Chiefs. That's a tough game. Patrick Mahomes, real quick. Real quick. Did anybody else watching last night's Monday night game? I've told people left and right. I'm like, if the Chiefs ever lose Patrick Mahomes, they are screwed. Watching him get help off the field and watching his knee buckle, were you guys like, is it actually happening? Not that I would wish injury upon anybody, but watching him deal with that and his pain. And then, of course, he's comes out and he's jogging out of the injury or medical tent. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me, Patrick Mahomes? Like, this is such a Patrick Mahomes type thing to see. It drives me nuts. I mean, he's such a good player. Everybody talks about how he's such a great guy too. But I'm like, of course that he would do that and be fine. Okay, I need to go back to where's the schedule at? I just had it up. Oh, here we go. Okay. You obviously then go on your bye. No, then you have the Falcons. I was reading it the wrong way. Then you have the Falcons. You have to win that game. I think that can even be a little bit of a trickier game, a coin flip of a game, if you will say. So you have to win that game. The Raiders, I think you can definitely pull off as well. Unfortunately, that one's not at home. That was the week 5 game. But I think that you can pull that out. The Raiders are having all sorts of difficulties. I think you can win against the Browns, and then you go on your bye. I think you can beat the Colts, and the Chargers is another one of those games where I feel like it's a coin flip. So I feel like the beginning of December, easy games. Like Thanksgiving to middle of December, I feel like those are very winnable games. Now, all the way up until those last few weeks, you never know with the Bengals, and you never know with the Chiefs again. So that's a little tough. So I feel like you have to really be able to dive into the areas where you can win. And there's a few games on there that they should be able to win if they play as well as they played against other teams. I know they only had 10 points. I didn't think they played all that bad in the first half against the Ravens. I truthfully did. And I feel like once things get a little out of hand, it's not like you're coming back into it and you start to be like, all right, on to the next one. And I think that's what happened in the second half. They got exposed hardcore. That's the reality. But they stayed in it way longer than I thought. They easily could have been down 21, 24 points coming out of into the second quarter. I think that's a realistic look at how good that Ravens defense is. So, or Ravens team is, I guess I should say. So I could totally see that happening as well. Okay. A tight end and a running back would be a great add-on to this team. Thank you for finally all agreeing with me that a running back would be a great addition. I am shocked that nobody else is talking about the fact that the Broncos should add a running back. Everyone's talking about a tight end, which I also agree with. A wide receiver, I get it. There's not a lot of household names, but there are I feel like the wide receiver room's looking a little bit better than the running back room is. And I'm a huge Javonte Williams guy. I really wish it would have worked out, but he just does not look the same. He is not finding the open gaps. He is running straight into the blockers' backs, which is frustrating beyond belief. And I feel like we even saw some of his snap counts even go down against the Ravens. So I'm so glad that other people are finally like, yes, we should in fact get a running back. Thank you. Let's see. This is also the main issue that the Denver Broncos have. We have $3.1 million in open cap space. Russell Wilson and their decision to cut him has essentially screwed this team so hard. So yeah, that sucks. Money sucks. What are you going to be able to do with it? Not a whole lot. And that's just the reality. I don't know how to make that sound better, but it's very, very true. And who are you willing to let go to create more space? We aren't really in a spot to buy or sell. Yeah. Everyone talking like, oh, you could go up there and sell Courtland Sutton for a 3rd-round pick, 4th-round pick. He's proven so much more. They're not going to get rid of Bo Nix's #1 target because this team still can make the playoffs. So that's not going to happen. I don't anticipate that happening at all. So if you're a big Courtland Sutton fan, you have his jersey, I think he's going to be safe. Years past, I would have said Courtland Sutton is headed its way out, but I think they're going to keep him. That relationship between him and Bo Nix is definitely starting to build a ton more too, which is really good to see. Tyler Bidet, right? Everyone wants to say Batty. Bidet has been working on the side field for the past 2 weeks per Andrew Mason. Go Mace. Should be back soon. Yeah, 2 weeks to work on the side field's a really long time. So we'll see if he does, in fact. I like Audric Estime. I know a lot of people were talking about, oh, he's just getting these runs at the end of the game. Personally, I think he can be explosive. So I would love to see a little bit more out of him. It really feels like for the running back room, things have drastically changed. It was Javonte, Jaleel, Audric at the beginning of the season, and then Tyler Bidet. But I think it's now moving more towards Jaleel, Javonte, and then I feel like any of the guys below that, it's like a rotation. It's depending on what Sean's feeling that day, to be honest with you. Okay. So there is some trade deadline news, not with the Broncos, so nobody freak out, but apparently Mike Williams going to the Steelers from the Jets. Let's see. How about those Steelers? Oh, Lord. I just think of our good friend James Marilat. So, this actually came out a while ago. I did not see this one. I've been too on the Broncos beat, but Pittsburgh is trading a 2025 5th-round pick to the Jets for wide receiver Mike Williams. I mean, if you're the Jets, you are capitalizing as much as you possibly can on the draft because this season has not gone anything like you thought it was going to go. So that's not surprising at all. And Steelers, their hot start, they really got to give it to Justin Fields. He helped them get off to such a hot start, so that would be great. Okay. Let's talk about this. What about trading Judy too late and getting less compensation, not trading Sutton again for comp picks, wasted 2nd-round pick and 3rd-round pick on Dulcich and Mims Jr.? The Jerry Jeudy thing is interesting, and I don't know how much they would have got for him if they would have traded him at the trade deadline compared to where they traded him now. But, I mean, it's definitely interesting. Keeping Courtland Sutton, I think, was a really good thing for this Broncos team. They needed the leadership in the locker room. I think that's one of the underlying stories of the past couple of years with Russell Wilson is they were really lacking leadership. And I blame Nathaniel Hackett for that. He let Russ come in and kind of just take over and do whatever. And once that locker room's already divided, it's really, really hard to get it back together. So I blame Nathaniel Hackett on that. But so I think keeping Courtland Sutton was really, really good. Wasted 2nd-round pick and 3rd-round pick on Dulcich and Mims. Yes. Greg Dulcich has not lived up to the expectations that we all thought were going to happen. That is a true reality of the fact. But you also, when you're taking a guy, you just never know how injuries are going to affect him. And unfortunately, it's affected him a ton. There's nothing else we can say about it. It's unfortunate and it sucks. Mims Jr. is the really surprising one because we were all so very high on Marvin Mims last year. And how can we forget the just absolutely viral, comical responses about that guy that was yelling at him when he was signing autographs and he was talking about how quarterback doesn't get him the ball. Well, I think that came back to bite him a little bit because Bo Nix has tried to get him the ball and Marvin Mims has not lived up to the expectation. His fall has just been wild to observe from the sidelines. Like everyone was talking about how Marvin Mims Jr. is going to be this guy. And now he's pretty much just a special teams guy. Like that's it. He's the punt returner. That's who Marvin Mims is. Because every time they try to get him involved, he's just not there. How many balls has he had dropped out of his hands? So many. So his fall from grace has just been wild to even observe in the slightest. So, yeah. I mean, Greg Dulcich, it's unfortunate, but there's nothing you can do about injuries. Marvin Mims, I don't know if it's something mental. He's got to figure it out, but he has fallen from like 1-2 to like 6 or 7. Brutal. All right, what else are you guys talking about in the comments? I'm just glad Casey didn't get Lattimore. Marshawn Lattimore traded to the Commanders. Yeah, so lots of moves are starting to happen. No surprise. There's a little less than 2 hours now. I love that everybody is talking about it. Also, the Baron Browning stuff. You guys definitely were not shy of being brutal in the comments for when it came to our take on the Baron Browning stuff. Be on the lookout at 12:30 at denversports.com because James Merlatt has his own take for all of you to read. So definitely go look. I actually just got from one of our very loyal listeners. Paul just tweeted at me and said, I'm all in on a running back. Add easiest to play faster. I would love to see them go out there and get a running back. But like I said, I personally just do not believe that they're going to be buyers. I think this game against the Ravens was like the make or break. And it kind of came at the perfect time too, because it was so easy to be like, all right, depending on how well we play against the Ravens is going to show where this team is at. If we're competitive all the way up until 4 quarters or somehow we miraculously pull out a win, then this team's really competitive. And then you can go out there and be buyers. But because of how they played and where they looked and all of that kind of jazz, I feel like it was very telling of, okay, here we go. We're not there yet. So let's sell some guys. Let's sign some guys we want to keep for the long term, but we're not going to go out there and buy a wide receiver number 1 or another running back or anything to try and, take that next leap for this year to make it to the Super Bowl. So Sean Payton's very knowing of where this team sits right now as well. I mean, let's be real. They're not stupid. They know exactly where this team is. That's another reason why Sean Payton went for it on so many of those 4th down calls, right? If you're competitive with this team, you're punting the ball and you're trusting your defense. There was no trust. They were just trying to get one step ahead. And unfortunately, it didn't work out the way we were all hoping it to. Could you imagine if they would have completed some of those 4th down? Well, I think they had 5 4th down attempts and they completed one of them. If they would have completed 3 or 4, everyone would have been like, Sean Payton is the man. He did such a great job. But of course, that did not happen that way. Okay, so what happened to my head? Yes, unfortunately, it's like not exciting at all, but I am really sad that it's probably going to leave a pretty massive scar because it's a pretty deep cut. But we were putting up a cabinet in my bathroom and a pair of pliers that we were using to hold one of the screws in, essentially. Like the way there's like a bracket that you had to hold in and it was really tight. So we were holding that and it came down and it fell directly on my head. So I've got a pretty nasty scar. It's going to scar and it's pretty deep cut. So yeah, that's unfortunate. So you're going to have to deal with me and this for a little bit while I can't put any makeup or anything on it. So hopefully it does heal and makes it a little bit easier on me. Let's see some other comments. Dun, 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 dun. Bo needs weapons to throw to when we don't have them weapons. We need veteran wide receivers to come in. The hope is that you're not making the Super Bowl this year, so you're looking ahead to the future. If you can continue to build chemistries with guys like Devon Bailey, I don't think Lil Jordan Humphreys is the answer, unfortunately, but you're continuing to just find some guys. Getting Josh Reynolds back at some point will be so beneficial for this team, you guys. It'll hopefully take this wide receiver room to the next level. But unfortunately, I just don't think you go out there and you try and get a wide receiver. You stick with what you have. You build that chemistry, that relationship, so that in 1 or 2 years possibly, that is like chef's kiss and everybody is so high on that wide receiver room. This is also the realization of trading Tim Patrick was a big mistake. And yes, it was, you guys. I wish it wasn't true. I am so, so happy, though, that Tim Patrick went to a team that is going to compete. The Lions are such a good team. I feel like any year could possibly be their year. So trading him was definitely a mistake, but I'm happy for Tim. You can't do anything about it. So that one's definitely an L when it comes to George Paton and Sean Payton for sure. Our wide receiver room is bottom 5. That's obvious. Yeah, it is. But I also think that their running back room is brutal too. I feel like I'm surprised not more people are talking about the running back room. Real quick, let's just take a little gander to see if there's anything else happening. When it comes to this Denver Broncos team. I don't think there is, but I want to make sure before we hop out of here. But overall, overall, number one, I'm so happy they signed Jonathan Cooper to an extension, and I love the story behind it. If you did not hear, please go watch Denver Sports Daily this morning, because we talked about Jonathan Cooper and how he kind of almost gave the Broncos a team-friendly deal. But to be honest, he just has to be ecstatic about that $60 million and $33 million because of the heart issues that he had. It's a really good, heartwarming story. Jonathan Cooper, I talked about him being the dog time and time again, and I truthfully think that he's lived up to it. If you watch my 10 observations that I did every single Wednesday for at least the first 4 weeks, then you know I was talking about Jonathan Cooper pretty much every single week, because you watch the film and he is there time and time again. He creates such a good amount of pressure on the quarterback, and I just think that he's done such a fantastic job. So this is such a good move by the Denver Broncos, and I'm so happy to see that. Was getting Franklin a bust? He's dropped a couple potential touchdown passes. Okay, sorry, I got distracted by this comment. Troy Franklin, that's obviously who they're talking about. The connection with Bo Nix and Troy Franklin, both coming from the University of Oregon. I feel like we were all very hyped on this, but I think Bo made him look really good. Oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but I truthfully think that Bo made him look really good. And so, yeah, that's going to be my take on him, on Troy Franklin. Sorry. Somebody said, are we going to make more moves? I personally do not believe that the Denver Broncos are going to be making any more moves ahead of the NFL trade deadline. If there are, these are the 3 names I personally think that we could be seeing, and that would be Greg Dulcich, Zach Wilson, and Javonte Williams. But again, I personally just think that they will be calling it a day, setting the phones down. They're probably maybe getting some calls, but seeing what they can get for it, who knows. But yeah, that's my personal take on it. But you guys, that is going to do it for today. I hope you guys have a wonderful Tuesday. It is election day. Make sure you go out there and vote as well. Polls close at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Right? Is it 7 p.m. Mountain Time or Eastern Time? I probably should look that up. I've already voted, so I wish I would have gotten a little sticker. I don't know if I got one. But yeah, I'm going to hopefully cover this up now and not just have a nice little Band-Aid. And then let's see, is there any other comments you guys have before we check off of here? No, I see you guys are not a huge Troy Franklin fan. Give it a little bit of time. Personally, I just think Bo made him look good. So that's going to do it for me, though, today, you guys. I appreciate you every single day. I love seeing these numbers here. You guys are back for sure. So it is going to end us here. And then, yeah, if the Broncos somehow make another huge, huge blockbuster move, I will be back on here. I promise you that one. Otherwise, you got Orange and Blue today, 4 p.m. Mountain Time. I know they've been changing up those times, but typically I know they try and shoot for 4 p.m. So be on the lookout for that. It should be a really good show as well, of course. But see you guys, that is going to do it. I love you all so much. Happy Election Day. Happy NFL trade deadline day. And we will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, everybody.